Hello, it's so great to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to stall 1 more minute. I see more video and audio is connecting. Super, super glad to have everybody here today for the Daily Antidote. Hello to Rick Pagliari, who's one of our singers this week. Glad you're with us today. And Fluffy Pooch too. Hello to Zeta in Chicago. Hi, sweetie. Great to see you today. Hello to Whitby and Ida in Cambridge. Great to see you guys today. So glad you're here. And Deborah in Kentucky, hello. Hello to Ross. Nice to see you today. Ross Wixon is one of the new EDs at Washington Rebels. Hello to Kathy from Virginia. Glad to have you with us today. Janet in Georgia, hello. Carolyn in Idaho, glad to see you. Hello, Jamie in BC. Glad you're here. Kathleen in Albuquerque, hello. Doug in Vermont, hello. Bonnie in Idaho, hello. Kevin in New Hampshire, glad you're here. Hi, Anne in DC, great to see you. Marion, hello, nice to see you today. Terry, nice to see you today. Max in New Hampshire, hello. Adele in the DMV area, hello. Gary in Massachusetts. Caroline, also in the DMV area. Barb in Kentucky. Hello, Mac, nice to see you again today. Glad you're with us. And Julie, hello, nice to see you. Hello to Luda in Victoria and Lynn in Connecticut. Betsy Fulford, the Washington Rebels music director. Glad you're here today. Lisa in Indiana. Sandy in the DMV area. Dan in Virginia. Jamie in BC. Steve Winnick, of course, is with us today. Glad that he is here. And we have also not on video, but glad to see you all. Sarah, who's Judith's sister. Hello, Deborah in Georgia. Valerie, Jody, Beryl in Chicago. Kathy and Gwen. And lots of other folks, Karen in Arizona, all popping in. It's great to see you all. Glad you're all here. Hello also to everybody out there on Facebook Live. We're super glad you're with us today too. Hello in particular to Mary in Omaha, who joins us every day on Facebook, and some other folks. I see Massachusetts, I see Vermont, and I see Texas all in the room there. It's great to see you guys. Welcome to the Washington Rebels Carpe Diem Arts Daily Antidote of Song. We are excited this week to have a special week, the Archive Challenge Week. This is our second one. We did one in September. We're here again in November with another set of artists who have participated in the Library of Congress American Folklife Center's Archive Challenge. So this entire week is going to be combination sing-along and ethnomusicology 101 or folklore 101, depending on how we want to look at it. It's a great week to learn a lot about music. We do know some folks come in from work to sing, so we will hold most of the discussion until after the song in case you need to leave. And as always, you can go whenever you need to go. Although we miss you, we understand that folks have time frames and they need to come and go as they can. So I would like to say just a couple quick announcements, a big shout out and a thank you to Binta, who's running the tech for us today, coming in from San Francisco. A shout out, of course, to Jennifer Cutting and Steve Winnick, my fabulous co-hosts. And I would also like to say there is a donate link in the chat box, and this program is being fueled entirely on your donations. All of the money that comes in is going to the performing artists. So thank you so much in advance for your donations. You guys are what is carrying this. This has been an incredible community that has come together for 225 days yesterday. So today is 226 days of singing together one song every day at noon, and we're going to keep on trucking, and we can't wait to sing with you as we move forward through the upcoming months and who knows how long. So I also want to say that the lyrics are both in the chat, and today's artist, Judith Cohen, who Jennifer is going to introduce, is also going to show the lyrics to us on screen. So I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you so much for co-hosting with me today. So glad you're here.
Hey, everybody. As Joe said, I'm Jennifer Cutting, and I'm a Folklife specialist at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress here in Washington, D.C. And my favorite part of my job is actually to reach out to folks in the creative community to interest them in the wonderful songs and tunes and spoken word in our collections. I will just say quickly that we're, not to brag, we're the largest archive of ethnographic materials in the United States and one of the largest in the world. You've all heard of some of the performers in our archive, folks like Muddy Waters, Pete Seeger, Leadbelly, Woody Guthrie, Aunt Molly Jackson, Bill Monroe, and Gene Ritchie. But guess what? There's thousands and thousands more wonderful singers, players, tale tellers you've never heard of before. So we want you to delve in. The Archive Challenge concept was actually born in 2015 when the American Folklife Center, AFC for short, was celebrating the centennial of American folklorist Alan Lomax. And he was the head of our archive from 1937 to 1942. So one of the ways we celebrated his centennial, was to invite 17 performers who were at the Folk Alliance conference in Kansas City, Missouri, to choose a song or tune from the Lomax collection and put their own creative spin on it, and then perform it in a showcase. That event was so successful that Folk Alliance invited us to co-sponsor an archive challenge every year. But that worked so well that we've also held archive challenge concerts in our homegrown concert series in our beautiful Coolidge Auditorium. We've made video of artists performing in our Folklife reading room after hours in front of the reference desk. And then when the coronavirus pandemic happened, we expanded the concept and we sent out an invitation to people all over the world to participate in the Stay at Home Archive Challenge. And if you all could, Binta, if you could put up the link for how to participate in the Stay at Home Archive Challenge, it's where you make a video of yourself performing material from our archive, any song or tune or story you want, and post it on social media with a special hashtag. So now the latest incarnation of the Archive Challenge is right here on the Daily Antidote, where we invite artists from lots of different genres to teach the songs that they found in our archive and teach them to you all. So we're now in our second Archive Challenge partnership week with Washington Revels and Carpe Diem. And I want to thank both organizations for allowing us to share our archival treasures that we've discovered with all of you. So today we bring you from just over the border in Canada, an old friend of mine and a wonderful musician, Dr. Judith Cohen. She's a professor of ethnomusicology, which just means the study of music in culture. She's a professor of ethnomusicology at York University in Toronto, as well as being a very accomplished performer. She is a very respected authority on Alan Lomax's 1952 recordings in Spain, and her specialty is Sephardic music and related traditions. He was awarded the Library of Congress's Alan Lomax Fellowship in 2010. So the next year she came to the Library of Congress to work with the Lomax Spain materials. And it's from those materials that she's selected one gem of a song to teach us today in Spanish. Judith, over to you.
Hi, can everyone hear me? So you've got all the words. Hi, Jennifer, thank you as always for being too kind. One of these days I'll say something about you and introduce you to everybody in the world. And you've got the words which Binta has very kindly put up for you in the chat. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to share my screen. This is actually my real live living room, everybody. It's where I'm sitting. It's not a background. But I'm going to temporarily share my screen so that you have the words right in front of you. Hold on 1 second. Okay, can you see them? Everyone can see them? You're muted, so if you can see them, just nod or wave your hand or something like that. And this is from the town of Arroyo de la Luz, the little stream of the light, which is actually short for the stream of the Virgin of the Light, which is the patron saint of the town. Up until the late 30s, it was called Arroyo del Puerco, to do with a pig, a statue of a wild boar. But anyway, where it is, this is Madrid in the center of Spain. This is Arroyo, way over near the Portuguese border. And this is the recording that we put out a long time ago, almost 20 years ago now, of the Alan Lomax's recordings right there. And just so you have it in your mind's eye, these are two of the women who didn't sing this song. There were two groups of women, an older group and a younger group. They were in the younger group 50 years or before I took this photo. And they were still there. I took this in 2001 or 2002. And this woman was in another group, and remembered Alan Lomax being there. And this is her daughter at the presentation of the CD. You can sort of see me in the corner with very bad light. So that's just a little bit of background. And it's a ballad. It's an old narrative ballad. And it's very odd that only in this village, nowhere else, they actually danced these ballads. Actually, one other place in Spain, in Asturias, up in the north. They would actually hold hands. The girls would hold hands and dance in a circle while they sang this ballad and many other ballads. And quite often the boys would be around and it would be a kind of flirting opportunity. And the reason it's so odd, you'll understand in a minute when I translate it for you, those of you who don't speak Spanish. So it's formerly known in the catalog as Bernal Francés. And he says, you know, who's knocking at my door? I'm not going to get up. And then she says, get up, my servant girl, you can go and answer. And the servant girl says, I'm not getting up. You can get up yourself. You're the one that the guy's going to sleep with. Which is, I think, just a great ballad opening. I love it. It's one of my favorite ballad lines ever. So she gets up, she opens the door, he comes in, they go to sleep. And this is actually where Lomax's recording stops. Not because they didn't want to sing anymore. You can hear the next word. But probably he just ran out of tape. That happened quite a lot. He ran out of tape, he ran out of film. But it goes on. And I've put the rest of the words in for you if you want them, for those of you who are interested. It goes on. She says, what's the matter? I've never seen you like this. And he says, are you worried about the law? Well, my father's the sheriff. Are you worried about my husband? He's far away. And he says, no, I'm not worried about your father. I'm not worried about the sheriff. I actually am your husband. He's not far away at all. And say a last prayer because I'm going to slit your throat right now. Or in Spanish ballad parlance, I'm going to give you a ruby-colored necklace. So that's it. And that's why I said it's so peculiar that they do it dancing around in a circle. They very cheerfully sing this, you know. So I'm just going to play, before I teach it to you, I'm going to play a little bit of the original women singing it for you. I'm just going to go out of share screen for a minute because I want to make sure that I did share computer sound, and I don't always remember. Yes, I did. Okay. So this is the women, the ones in the picture.
Quien a mi puerta a estas horas, Larín, larero, yo no me levanto a abrir, Larán, Larín, yo no me levanto a abrir, Larán, Larín, el buen francés.
Okay, so that's what they sounded like. They weren't dancing when Lomax was there. They were sitting still. And I actually went to the village by sheer chance before he was there and recorded some of them, recorded Valeriana singing this and other ballads, and then I went back as well. So this is how it works. The refrain is very short. It's only these words in purple. So the first time it's Larín, Larero. If you can roll the R's, that's great. And if you can't roll the R's, that's fine too. So it doesn't mean anything. They're just syllables. Larín, Larero. And the second time it's Larán, Larín. And then that second half of each verse is repeated. So it's Larán, Larín again. And this is how it works. So I say, Quien a mi puerta estas horas. And we all say, Larín, Larero. Then I say, yo no me levanto a abrir. And we all go, Larán, Larín. Or it can be Larán, Larín. Doesn't matter. Larán, Larín, Larán, Larín. Either is fine. And then I repeat that. Yo no me levanto a abrir. Larán, Larín. And every verse works the same way. I didn't write it all out because I was wanting to get it all on one screen together with the translation. But el buen francés soy señora, Larín, larero, a quien le soles abrir, Larán, Larín, a quien le soles abrir, Larán, Larín. So before I sing it through, let's just do it on la la la. And I'm going to imagine that I hear you all singing the refrain because we all know what happens. We're all experienced by now. We all know what happens on Zoom if we unmute and we all sing it with terrible, dreaded Zoom lag. So we're going to stay muted. But I'm going to assume that you're all singing it really, really well. So if I say something like you sound great, it's because I know you sound great. Okay, so I'm just going to do it on la 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 first and then we'll sing it through. La da 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 da, Larín, larero, Da 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 da. Laran larin. Da 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 da. Laran larin. Da 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 da. Larin larero. Da 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 da. Laran larin. Da 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 da. Laran larin. Okay? So do you all have the words from the chat? You all have the words in the chat? Okay, because I'll probably stop screen sharing so that you can see me directing the song a little bit better. So if everybody gets their words ready from the chat, got that? I'll give you a second, and then I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but I can put it back up anytime. And you also have, I think many of you have the whole PDF with all the rest of the words, because since Lomax didn't record them all, I got the rest of the words as they always sing there in the village with the translation. And if you didn't get it, just let Joe or Revels or Jennifer or myself know, and we'll make sure that you get the whole PDF. And also, let me just ask quickly in Spanish. ¿Hay alguien aquí de Arroyo? I invited people from the town, from the village, to come today, and I don't know if anybody did. ¿Hay alguien aquí de Arroyo? Hazme un señal con la mano o algo así. Okay, well, if somebody comes in from Arroyo later, we'll greet them specially, and if I make a mistake, they can always correct it. So can you pin me, I guess, spotlight me? Or I'll spotlight myself. Here we go. You see me? Okay, and let me get this ready so I can see it. Okay, let's go. Ready? Quien a mi puerta estas horas, Larín, larero, yo no me levanto a abrir, laran, larín, yo no me levanto a abrir, laran, larín. El buen francés soy señora, Larín, larero, a quien le soles abrir, laran, larín, a quien le soles abrir, laran, larín. Levántate mi criada, Larín, larero, levántate, vele a abrir, laran, larín, levántate, vele a abrir, laran, larín. Levántese usted mi ama, Larín, larero, que con ustedes dormir, laran, larín, que con ustedes dormir, laran, larín. Se ha puesto la en agua blanca, Larín, laredo, y se ha levantado a abrir, laran, larín, y se ha levantado a abrir, laran, larín. Al desatrancar la puerta, Larín, larero, se le ha apagado el candil, laran, larín, se le ha apagado el candil, laran, larín. Quien ha apagado mi luz, Larín, larero, también me matará a mí, laran, larín, también me matará a mí, laran, larín. Y no he apagado tu luz, Larín, larero, que la estimo más que a mí, laran, larín, que la estimo más que a mí, laran, larín. La ha cogido de la mano, Larín, larero, y le ha llevado al jardín, laran, larín, y le ha llevado al jardín, laran, larín. Y ha lavado pies y manos, Larín, larero, con agua de toronjil, laran, larín, con agua de toronjil, laran, larín. So that's as far as Alan Lomax recorded it. I also thought it was really peculiar that it stopped there. Why? Because this is pandemic times, and the last line says, she washed his feet and his hands with lemon balm. And what do we spend an awful lot of our waking time doing since last March? Washing our hands, not necessarily with agua de toronjil, with lemon balm. In fact, probably not with lemon balm. But I thought that was just such an appropriate place when I realized that I actually laughed out loud all by myself or with my cat. So that's how it goes. Do you want to go through it again all together? You do. And how many of you, I guess you can put up your little blue hands in the participants, or you can wave your hand. How many of you would like to sing or have me sing or sing along if you speak Spanish, or even if you don't speak Spanish, with the whole thing, with the whole text? Yeah? Okay. So let's do it. And I'm going to share my screen again so that you can follow the whole thing easily.
Judith, just letting you know there is a Depina in the room from, I think, from Spain. Yep, she's waving to you.
Really? Oh, Pina, es la hija de Emiliana, ¿no? Qué bien. Espera, vamos a ver. Yo no la veo. No la veo en la lista. ¿Dónde está? Where is she? Because I don't see her in the list. Let me go back to gallery and see if I see it. This is very exciting, everybody. The woman in the picture, in the PowerPoint, at the bottom left, I think, is her grandmother, and the woman at the bottom right, who's got the tambourine, is her mother. And they both sang me many, many of these songs. De Pina, si yo me equivoco, si algo que canto mal o que digo mal, bueno, me lo dices después, ¿no? Y me corriges. Y si está muy, muy mal, pues me corriges en el momento, ¿vale?
Me voy a corregir. No.
Vale.
Pero sigue más, la canción sigue más, ¿no?
Sigue más, es que he puesto la segunda. Lo que he hecho es que he puesto la segunda mitad de la canción, porque cuando estuvo Alan Lomax, se le acabó la cinta para grabar. Entonces yo busqué el resto de la letra y está toda la letra, ¿ok? Y lo vamos a cantar ahora con toda la letra. No te preocupes. Y si hay algún variante aquí y allá, es que cada persona la canta un poquitín diferente. So everybody, the woman I was just happily, excitedly speaking to from Arroyo, from the village, is the daughter of this wonderful woman, Emiliana, and the granddaughter of this very wonderful woman, La Valeriana. Okay? And Valeriana didn't sing, as I told you, for Lomax. No cantó Valeriana para Lomax, pero se acordaba, but she remembered very well when he was there. So let's go. Quien a mi puerta a estas horas, Larín, Larero, yo no me levanto a abrir, Laran, Larín, yo no me levanto a abrir, Laran, Larín. El buen francés soy señora, Larín, Larero, a quien le soles abrir, Laran, Larín, a quien le soles abrir, Laran, Larín. Levántate mi criada, Larín, Larero, levántate, vele a abrir, Laran, Larín, levántate, vele a abrir, Laran, Larín. Levántese usted mi ama, Larín, Laredo, que con usted de dormir, Laran, Larín, que con usted de dormir, Laran, Larín. Se ha puesto la en agua blanca, Larín, Larero, y se ha levantado a abrir, Laran, Larín, y se ha levantado a abrir, Laran, Larín. Al desatrancar la puerta, Larín, Larero, se le ha apagado el candil, Laran, Larín, se le ha apagado el candil, Laran, Larín. Quien ha apagado mi luz, Larín, Larero, también me matará a mí, Laran, Larín, también me matará a mí, Laran, Larín. Yo no he apagado tu luz, Larín, Larero, que la estimo más que a mí, Laran, Larín, que la estimo más que a mí, Laran, Larín. Le ha cogido de la mano, Larín, Larero, le ha llevado y al jardín, Laran, Larín, le ha llevado al jardín, Laran, Larín. Le ha lavado pies y manos, Larín, Larero, con agua de toronjil, Laran, Larín, con agua de toronjil, Laran, Larín. Y después de bien lavado, Larín, Larero, se lo ha llevado a dormir, Laran, Larín, se lo ha llevado a dormir, laran, larín, entre sábanas de Holanda, larín, larero, y colchas de carmesí, laran, larín, y colchas de carmesí, laran, larín, y eso de la medianoche, larín, larero, estas palabras le oí, laran, larín, estas palabras le oí, laran, larín, que tienes mi buen francés, larín, larero, que nunca te he visto así, laran, larín, que nunca te he visto así, laran, larín. Si temes a la justicia, larín, larero, mi padre es el alguacil, laran, larín, mi padre es el alguacil, laran, larín. No temas a mi marido, larín, larero, que está muy lejos de aquí, laran, larín, que está muy lejos de aquí, laran, larín. Yo no temo a la justicia, larín, larero, ni a tu padre el alguacil, laran, larín, ni a tu padre el alguacil, laran, larín, ni tampoco a tu marido, larín, larero, que está muy cerca de ti, laran, larín, que está muy cerca de ti, laran, larín. Mariquita reza un credo, larín, larero, que pronto vas a morir, laran, larín, que pronto vas a morir, laran, larín, gargantilla colorada, larín, larero, tengo pensado para ti, laran, larín, tengo pensado para ti, laran, larín. And of course, all that time you're dancing around in a circle, que está bailando en corro, con todas esas palabras, ¿no? Un poco complicadas, pero bailando y cantando y pasándoselo bien por la tarde, dancing in the circle. So, you guys have any questions or comments?
Oh, Judith, that was wonderful. That ballad had everything going for it. It had seduction, it had adultery, it had murder. Man, that's juicy stuff. Could we hear from your friend from Arroyo de la Luz again? Is she there still?
Pina, ¿estás todavía?
Pina?
Pina, ¿quieres hablar? Puedes deshacer el silencio si quieres. Ah, sí, está. Si quieres, Pina, es que le pareces tanto a tu madre, es increíble.
Sí,
No, si quieres tú, dile tú que
soy
soy
yo,
yo.
soy yo.
Es que eres tú, Emiliana. Everybody, this is
Yo soy-
Emiliana.
esta es mi hija que está aquí al lado.
This is wonderful, Emiliana, whose mother was La Valle, Valeriana.
Valeriana, sí.
Y les
Te
voy
la
a
ha
decir,
cantado muy bien, te ha salido muy bien
sí,
el romance. Que te
no
ha
me he
ca-
equivocado, no me he equivocado demasiado.
No, muy bien. Muy
Ok.
bien, muy bien.
Y después me lo dices, ¿no? Si no quieres decirlo delante de todo el mundo, pues después me lo dices sin problema. I just said to her, she said I did well, I didn't make any mistakes. And I said, look, if you're just saying that to be nice and you want to tell me about the mistakes after, it's cool, you know, it's okay. Emiliana, les voy a explicar en inglés cómo llegué la primera vez a la puerta de tu madre hace unos 20 y
Sí,
pico
sí.
años, ¿ok?
Explícaselo.
This is too funny. So before I knew about Alan's collection in Arroyo, I knew about Alan Lomax. I just didn't know about this collection. I heard that they played a pandero, that they played a very large frame drum in Arroyo. And I was doing a study of women and frame drums. So I took the bus from the city of Cáceres, and I arrived at Arroyo around 6 o'clock, 7 in the evening on a summer's evening. Things were just warming up. People were sitting outside. And I just said, who plays this drum? And they said, well, go to the house of Valeriana Cid. And they told me how to get to the house, and I knocked on her door, and La Valle came to the door, and she said, not unreasonably, who are you? And I explained, and she said, okay, well, come on in. I guess I can sing you a few songs. And I went in, and I realized I had nowhere to go, because I said, what time's the last bus back to Cáceres? And they said, you came in on the last bus back to Cáceres. It goes back tomorrow morning. And I said, well, that's okay. Is there a pension or, you know, like a B&B I can stay in? And they said, well, normally there would be one, But actually, it's holidays and everybody is here from out of town come to see their families. There's nowhere. So Valeriana, Emiliana's mother, said, well, you can stay with me. Y tú, Emiliana, dijiste que no. Que yo como era
Sí, ya.
extranjera, que quién sabía
Yo
qué
dije
tipo
que
de
no.
persona yo era, ¿no? Igual le mataba en su cama, como en el romance. So Emiliana
Sí.
said, oh, Mom, no, you can't just let a stranger come stay here. You know, it could be just like the ballad. She could like murder us in our beds.
No sé,
So,
no
so
sé.
So you walked me over, me acompañaste a la pequeña policía, ¿te acuerdas? La oficina
Sí.
de policía, que es chiquitín, chiquitín, que no es nada. It's a little police station like about this big, you know, it's smaller than my living room. And there was a young policeman on duty, and he said, well, let me phone just out of town and see if they have a bed there. I'll drive you. No, they're all full up. Oh, I know. We've just opened La Casa de los Amigos de las Aves, ¿te acuerdas?
Sí,
We've
sí.
just opened the new house of the Friends of the Birds, which is like a natural summer camp for youth from other places to come and learn about the flora and fauna of Arroyo. And it's not really open yet, but we can put a bed there for you and you can stay there. So he walked through the village and he called a couple of guys and they put a cot, like a bed, and he called a couple of women and they put linen and towels and everything. And I said, where's the bathroom? And they said, oh, we haven't made a bathroom yet, que todavía no tiene cuarto de baño. Vete antes a algún
Sí.
bar. Vete antes a algún bar, no? So go to a restaurant or a bar before everyone's open till 1 in the morning, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It's summer. And I said, oh, and how do I lock the door? Ah, que todavía no tiene cerradura, pero nadie va a entrar, no te preocupes. It doesn't have a lock yet, but no one's going to come in. Don't worry about it. So I, hung out till really late at night because, it's summer and you sing and you sit around in the bars and you sing with everybody till really late. And then I went to bed and I closed the door and, well, I found a bathroom in one of the bars and then I went to bed and closed the door and got up and walked to the bus station to get the first bus back to Cáceres the next morning. Y cogí el primer bus a Cáceres el día siguiente. And then a couple of years later, when I agreed with Ana Lomax Wood, Dr. Ana Lomax Wood, to work on the Lomax Spain collection, I was staying with Marusha Gutierrez, who lives really close by, who lived in the next town over, Malpartida de Cáceres. And we went back and we interviewed La Valeriana with her friend, su amiga Isabela, estaba la amiga de tu madre que puse en la foto, ¿no?
Sí.
And then a year later, we presented the CD, and Emiliana came up to the stage and sang, and that was pretty great.
Oh, Pina, it's so wonderful to have you here. Muchas gracias por asistir.
Gracias, gracias. Muy bien.
I just wanted to, I wanted to mention that we had another performer from Spain, Carlos, and I want to ask Steve if he'll put the link from Carlos's concert in the chat room. Steve, did you want to say a word about Carlos's concert?
Yeah, so sort of one of the progenitors of the Archive Challenge really was a concert that we had in 2014 when Carlos Nunez, who's a very well-known Galician bagpiper, came to the Library of Congress, and well, he came before 2014 to do research on these Lomax recordings because among these recordings from Spain were really the first extensive field recordings made in his region in Galicia. So he was very interested in these recordings, and he actually learned a whole selection of them and performed a whole concert for us in 2014. And during that concert, the reason that I wanted to highlight it now, Carlos doesn't have a singer in his band. It's an instrumental band. And so several of us pitched in, including Judith and myself, singing songs during that concert. And Judith also introduced Carlos. And I played the role of Alan Lomax, reading Alan's field notes. And so it's a real fun concert with a lot more of the music that was recorded in Spain, although in a different region, back in the 1950s, the early 1950s. So I'm popping the link into the chat right now, so you will all be able to see that.
Actually, there was an interesting connection because there's a phenomenon called transhumancia, and many of the shepherds. I'm saying shepherds in a sort of general sense. It wasn't always sheep. It could be goat. It could be cattle. But many of the shepherds in this part of Spain, in Extremadura, where Arroyo is, la transhumancia, estoy hablando, Pina, ¿no? Que muchos pastores iban al norte, they went up to León, and they went up even sometimes as far as Galicia to pasture their animals when it wasn't too hot in the summer, where there was fresh green grass, and then they would come back in September. And in fact, when we were preparing the Extremadura recordings, Marusha Gutierrez, who is from the area and who was living in Malpartida de Cáceres, she remembered as a very small child, the year Lomax was there actually, she was a very small child, and she remembered the shepherds coming back with their new songs and their new romances and their new ballads that they had learned during the summer months up in León and sometimes as far as Galicia, and singing them. And in fact, one of the few direct buses, overnight buses, I don't drive, so I know all about buses and hitchhiking, you can take, actually goes from Galicia, from where Carlos lives in Vigo, from where Carlos Núñez lives in Vigo, all the way down and around Portugal and all the way down into Cáceres. And I've taken that overnight bus many times. But the funny story about Carlos is that I met him when he was very young and he was just getting famous. And in 96, I think, I was doing a concert in Vigo at a folk club. And usually, you know, they crowd in as many people as possible and they don't worry about it. But there was a secret notice out that the fire department was inspecting that night, and you were not allowed to have one person over the legal capacity of the bar. So they were actually counting, which was very unusual. And they were allowed, I don't know, 37 or 38 people. And all of a sudden I was singing and I heard this commotion at the bar. And I remember actually I was playing this instrument. I remember quite clearly. I was playing my medieval bowed fiddle, my vielle. And I heard Carlos Núñez's voice yelling in Spanish, pero es que soy Carlos Núñez, es que tenés que dejarme entrar, but I'm Carlos Núñez, you have to let me in. And they said, sorry, dude, you know, lo siento, tío, any other night we'd be happy to let you in, there'd be no question, but we really have to count, you know, for the fire inspection. So if nobody leaves, then you've got to wait till somebody comes in. So I'm probably the only one of the very few people around, I imagine the only one in North America who can say that Carlos Núñez couldn't get into my concert.
In Vigo. That's crazy.
In his own town. He forgave me. He forgave me, though.
That's good.
So two more things I just wanted to mention. One, of course, Carlos worked with Washington Revels not that long ago, so many of you may remember him. So that's another reason to check out his concert. And that Judith mentioned Ana Lomax Wood, and when we're talking about the Lomax Spain recordings and many of these recordings, we'd just like to thank the Association for Cultural Equity, which is Lomax's foundation and now corporation that handles a lot of the rights work and other important legal work behind these recordings, and also maintains the website where they live, which is culturalequity.org. And I'll pop that into the chat as well, because you can actually get all of these field recordings, or most of them, online at culturalequity.org.
But with a word of caution, the Extremadura one, something happened to them, and the sound files that are up, including this one, many of them don't match the title. So if you wait for a little while, a couple of weeks, we're trying to get that straightened out. That's why I put it on for you to hear directly, because you won't be able to get it right away from the Cultural Equity site. And I just wanted to add that Ana Lomax Wood is, of course, Alan Lomax's daughter. And she herself is a highly trained anthropologist, ethnomusicologist, field worker. And I have learned so much from her over the years, the 20 years or so that I've been working with the archive on every level. And I invited her, but I don't see her here today. But, you know, she's so much more than Alan Lomax's daughter. I mean, it's really, I would say, you know, Alan Lomax is Ana Lomax Wood's father.
And I'd just like to mention that if people want to get this field recording and they're unable to find it on the Association for Cultural Equity website until the labeling gets sorted out, people can actually go to the website of Rounder Records and either download or buy the CD. It's called The Spanish Recordings Extremadura, and our own Judith Cohen wrote the notes for that CD along with Maria Gutierrez. And in the notes to this song, they said, this old ballad is not found frequently today, but is still part of the Sephardic tradition. And I wanted to ask a question of Judith today. How do you think it survived in the Sephardic tradition? Why there more than elsewhere? Why in the Judeo-Spanish tradition did it survive longer?
Well, a tremendous amount of ballads actually survived in the Sephardic, the Judeo-Spanish tradition. This is the tradition of the descendants of the Jews who were exiled from Spain in 1492.
Right.
And they went to what are today Turkey, Morocco, the Balkans, Greece. And many ballads, not the tunes, they changed the tunes over the centuries completely, but many of the words and the stories of the ballads lasted longer there than in Spain and Portugal. And we don't really know why, but possibly because it was among the women mostly, and the women were more secluded. These were formerly largely Muslim areas.
Uh-huh.
And the women, they weren't exactly secluded, but they stayed home and among themselves more. And it was the men who went out more and interacted more with the environment. And so the women kept a lot of songs and a lot of proverbs and folk tales and recipes and so on alive, wedding customs, for example, among themselves. I used to sing the Moroccan Sephardic version of this ballad in my old group, Gerineldo, actually long before I even knew about the Arroyo de la Luz collection. Goes, let's see. Yo me levantara un lunes y un lunes antes y al bor cogiera mi cantarito y a la mar me eché a nadar, digo así, al sol de la hierba yo me iré a dormir. And it occurs to me, I didn't check, Jennifer, but it might be in the archive.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember whether Henrietta Yurchenko recorded that song specifically. She was, as you know, in Morocco, in
Right.
northern Morocco in the late 1950s.
Right.
And she deposited her recordings at the archive. But I just can't remember offhand whether this song is among them. I think it is. So maybe sometime in the future we can talk and I'll dig out something from Henrietta's collection to teach.
Great. Well, I just wanted to mention, you probably know Samuel Armistead and Joseph Silverman, who are Sephardic ballad scholars. I'm sure you know them. They wrote in a 1987 paper in the journal Oral Tradition, and I quote, "The Judeo-Spanish tradition is clearly in the final stages of a critical decline." So
No.
I
Well,
would love,
yes,
I would
yes
love to
and
hear
no.
your response to that.
Okay, yes and no. First of all, Sam Armistead, who died in 2013, and Joe Silverman died before that, but they were just among the most fantastic, not only scholars, but people, really at every possible level. They were just amazing people. The Sephardic tradition is having a big renaissance lately, and actually, ironically, the pandemic has given a huge spur to online learning, not so much of songs also, but the language and revival of the language, even in its old form using Hebrew characters, especially adapted Hebrew characters. But the ballads, the narrative ballads, have basically disappeared, and they basically disappeared from daily life before, like when they were writing this. In the old Ottoman Empire, they were pretty much gone by the Second World War. There are a few people who knew them. In Morocco, they lasted longer, so I recorded quite a lot of them in the 1980s and 1990s among Moroccan Jewish women in Montreal. But very, very few people sing the ballads because they were tied to daily life. So these long ballads, in Arroyo, as I was saying, you danced around in a circle, but you also sang them sitting and embroidering, sewing, mending, shelling peas, doing things with your hands. And all those occasions are pretty much gone. So, I always say it's really hard to sing a ballad while the dishwasher is running.
Right.
And a lot of them have really disappeared. But the good news is they're all preserved. They're all recorded. There's a tremendous amount of documentary recordings that you can get online. And in fact, only 2 weeks ago, I don't have the URL right here, but if you look up EMI, Judeo-Spanish Songs, EMI Archive, speaking of archive challenges, several of us, over 10 years, it's a really long story, so I'm not going to go into it, but over 10 years, several of us, ethnomusicologists, archivists, lawyers, copyright specialists, worked with the EMI archives on Abbey Road, same Abbey Road, to rescue 78 Sephardic recordings made between 1906 or 7 and 1912 that had never been issued. that were there on
Wow.
records. In fact, that
Uh-huh.
summer in 2011, when I took off for a week to go to Spain for a conference, Jennifer,
Uh-huh.
I had 2 days in England, and
Uh-huh.
I was able to go to the archives and actually listen to an original
Oh,
record. And they
awesome.
had records made of chocolate, by the way. So anyway, we managed to get all the copyright done, the technical stuff, the laser cleanup of the recordings as much as possible. And the good news is it's all free. It's all online. You can't download it. You can stream all the recordings. Eventually you can buy the CD when it comes out. Actually, it's 4 CDs in the set, but you can stream it all and you can download the PDF. So if you're interested, these are recordings from Bosnia, Turkey, Salonika, from the old Ottoman Empire area,
Uh-huh.
made in the first decade of the 20th century, Sephardic songs, and never released. Some of them are known and some of them aren't known, and some are the earliest versions. So it's actually extremely exciting.
Wow. So together with that site and then Samuel Armistead and Joe Silverman's publications of
Well,
Judaism.
they actually had Sam and his students and his colleagues put together an online site where a lot of these recordings and transcriptions of the entire Hispanic, not only Sephardic, but anything in the Spanish language and Portuguese too, is there. It's called, I'll look it up for you. I wasn't thinking
Okay,
Sephardic
great.
language,
Maybe
but I
Joe can
send it to
send
you.
that out to everybody tomorrow.
Folk literature of the Sephardic Jews, I believe the website's called. And
Great.
it's in English and Spanish. Está en español también. It's very user friendly.
Just I just wanted to direct this question to Pina. Pina, ¿todavía se canta en Arroyo de la Luz Bernal Francés? ¿Todavía se canta?
Larín Larelo.
Larín, Lareno.
Tiene que deshacer el silencio. Está,
Se canta.
Emiliana, estás en... ahora.
Sí,
Ahora.
pero ahora no se canta. Eso se suele cantar por los carnavales.
Ajá.
Carnavales por febrero, que suele ser los carnavales, pues, pero ya se hace pocos corros y nada, se hace poco.
Okay.
Y ahora todavía menos, con lo que tenemos encima, como yo digo.
Claro. Pero hay gente que
La
se lo
situación-
sabe todavía, o gente más joven que tú ya no lo sabe.
No. Yo lo aprendí porque estaba mi madre siempre cantando, tú lo sabes, siempre cantando esta canción y de ella lo aprendí. Y se ha ido perdiendo y la juventud canta poco esto. Sí.
So young people don't sing very many of these. They do more of the sort of folkloric thing, you know, folklore groups with dances, bailes folclóricos, ¿no? El grupo folclórico de Arroyo.
De Arroyo, pues
Más
canta
como
muy
el
poco,
redoble, los bailes
pero canta
típicos
muy
y todo
poco.
eso, pero muy poco de... ¿Y el
Muy
pandero?
poco.
¿Siguen tocando bien el pandero o no?
Sí, pero ahora está eso parado. Llevamos 8 o 10 meses.
Because they also have this fabulous frame drum tradition where the melody of the song, I don't know how to explain this, but the melody of the song doesn't really match up in an obvious way to the rhythm of the pandero. It's very subtle. And the first recordings that were made in the 1930s by Kurt Schindler, by the German Jewish or Austrian Jewish Kurt Schindler, are the same. They sound exactly the same as Lomax's recordings in the 50s, and the same as a group in Spain who went out and recorded them in the 80s, and the same as Valeriana sounded in the 90s and 2000s. And it's
Mi madre sí que lo
very
cantaba.
Estoy diciendo que la manera de tocar el pandero para la rama y la tonalidad llana y todo
Sí.
eso es muy difícil porque el toque del pandero no coincide exactamente con el ritmo de la canción.
De la canción, sí.
Es muy complicado. Y yo creo que los jóvenes o las jóvenes ya no
Los
saben.
las jóvenes no lo saben tocar. No lo saben tocar.
El problema es que en la Universidad de Cáceres, en
Sí.
el departamento de música, no lo enseñan bien.
No,
Que yo sepa,
no.
lo enseñan de manera que el ritmo coincida perfectamente, pero es que no es así, es que no se
No.
hace así. So when they, you know, Emiliana, Pina is, Emiliana is agreeing with me that I'm sort of talking to all generations at once, you know,
Yeah.
that this tradition, this very difficult tradition of the pandero is pretty much disappearing. And the problem is when they taught it at the nearby university in Cáceres, they kind of straightened out the rhythm, you know, they ironed it out and cleaned it
Yeah.
up. And, it doesn't work that way. It's not so simple.
Right.
It's not, you know, if you sing it like Dale niña al pandero, dale que suene. It's not. No es. No es. Dale niña al pandero, dale que no. It doesn't
Pero
match.
así no. No.
Dale niña al pandero, dale que suene. It's very, very difficult,
Una.
and it's very difficult to dance.
¿Sí?
And if you don't grow up doing it, Emiliana grew up because her mother sang all the time. Tu madre cantaba siempre, bailaba siempre, lo sabía siempre, tocaba siempre. But if you don't grow up with it, it's very, very hard to acquire. And it's on that same Extremadura recording that Lomax recorded and we edited. There are several, there are I think 4 or 5 of these songs with the pandero on the recording. Done in the old way, the way they used to be done.
Great. Well, can we hear, just because a lot of people have to go now, just because our time is running out, I want to thank Pina for attending from Spain. Gracias por asistir de tan lejos. Thank you,
Emiliana. Pina's actually her daughter, and this is Emiliana. It's her daughter's phone.
Emiliana, gracias por asistir. And,
Oye, Judy, ¿me estás escuchando, Judy?
Sí, claro.
Como has tocado el pandero, no es así, ¿eh?
Sí, eso lo
Así no
expliqué.
se toca.
Expliqué que yo no lo toqué bien.
Ya.
She wants to make
Porque
sure that
tú
you
ya-
know that I
ya
didn't
lo
do
viste.
it right.
Lo viste. A mi madre y a mí, que yo por ella lo aprendí, vamos, porque
Pero un momento,
yo
¿acaso
estaba
tiene-
venga, y toca, sí.
Emiliana,
Pero-
¿acaso tienes un pandero al lado?
No, pues si me lo hubieras bueno, otro día que nos comunicamos, ya te tocaría yo el pandero.
Okay, she
¿Cómo
doesn't
se
have
toca?
it. She doesn't have it nearby, but another
Oh,
day she'll give
okay.
me a private.
But
No toda la gente toca el pandero.
But she can sing
Dicen que
along
yo
with
para mí es sencillo, pero dice, oye, es muy difícil. Y digo, pues no lo veo yo tan difícil.
Y si tú cantaras ahora un poco de Larín, Larero, tú solita.
Quien a mi casa está sola, Larín, Larero, yo no me levanto a abrir, Larín, yo no me levanto a abrir, Larín. ¿Vale?
Un poquito más, un poquitín más. ¡Qué maravilla!
Ahora la letra no, como no me sale mucho.
Ay, pero qué maravilla, qué maravilla.
El francés.
El buen francés, ¿no?
Sí, pero bueno, no te voy a seguir. Quien ha apagado mi luz, Larín, Larero, me quiere más que tú a mí, Larín, me quiere más que tú a mí, Larín. Es que no estoy yo tengo la garganta muy mal, muy malos.
No
Otro
lo
día
decía.
que hablemos, ya tendré yo el pandero aquí al lado y ya te lo toco yo.
Para mí tu voz suena perfectamente, no hay ningún problema, Emiliana.
Bueno, sí.
Pero qué ganas me da de volver y estar con vosotros.
Sí, encantada.
Well, it makes me really feel like going back tomorrow, and who knows when we're going to be able to go back. Quién sabe cuándo podremos, ¿no?
Oh, quién sabe. I feel homesick for Spain just listening to Emiliana. Thank you.
Sabes, Emiliana, que esta Jennifer, mi amiga, mi colega Jennifer, que está hablando, vivió un rato en España en su juventud dando clase en Almería, en un pueblecito de Almería, al otro lado.
Nosotros estamos lejos de... ellos están en el sur, nosotros estamos aquí en el este.
What a fun time we had comparing notes about being women collecting in Spain, in a country that could sometimes be very patriarchal. I had men asking me all the time, why did your father and your brother allow you to come to this country all alone?
Well, that was in the 80s. I first went to Spain under Franco. Emiliana, la primera vez que estuve en España, estaba todavía Franco. Y yo vivía,
sí, está claro, sí.
En los 70. Y yo vivía en un pueblo de habla valenciano catalán, ¿no? Y era una cosa, I was living in the early 70s. I spent half a year in a village in Spain where they spoke Valencian Catalan. And that was forbidden under Franco. So you can imagine
right.
That was like, but when I first traveled, Jennifer, to former Yugoslavia the year before in 1970, my girlfriend that I traveled with and I, bought cheap black veils in Woolworths before we left, and cheap rings, like pretend rings. And we walked around wearing these little black veils and dresses and rings. And every time the guys bothered us, we would flash our rings and say we were widows.
Oh, that's a good one. I wish I'd picked up on your tricks before I went doing field work in Spain. That's a good one. Well, I'm afraid we have to say goodbye now because lots of folks have to return to work. But I want to thank Emiliana for attending from Spain and for singing for us. I want to thank Judith for being the embodiment of everything an ethnomusicologist should be. You love the music so much, you sing it so well, you know so much about the culture that gave birth to it, and you have such great, as we can see today, great and respectful relationships with the tradition bearers who have shared their songs with you. Thank you for taking time to teach us this ballad. And I think that for those of us who don't speak Spanish, our Spanish language skills grew by leaps and bounds today, as did our knowledge of Lomax's collecting work in Spain. I want to thank also my co-host Stephen Winnick for adding what he added to our discussion today. I want to thank Washington Revels, Carpe Diem, and our indefatigable host, Joe Rossi, who's here every day to cheer your day with the daily antidote of song.
And I want to say thank you also because Jo has been endlessly patient, and I've sent her different versions of the PDF and said, this is a correction and I made a mistake, and can I use this instead, and can I do it that way? And Jo, you've just been endlessly wonderful about this. So thanks to you, Washington Revels, Carpe Diem, Seize the Day, I love that name, the American Folklife Center, my home away from home, my beloved Jennifer and Steve and everybody else.
So let's all go out.
Muchísimas gracias a ti, Pina.
And let's all go out and seize the day.
Nada, encantada. Estamos encantadas por atenderos.
Mira, la próxima vez voy a llevarme a Jennifer conmigo, okay? Jennifer's going to come with me next time.
Muy bien.
Claro.
Vale,
Thank you so much, everybody. This was amazing. What an incredible journey. I'm so excited that we actually got to spend this time together today. And if you wanted to hear the song again, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody on Facebook Live, but you can always go back to Facebook and hear it again and play it there again if you're interested in singing it through another time. Thank you, everybody on Facebook Live, for joining us. Thank you so much, and please join us tomorrow. We have Ahi coming from Toronto tomorrow, so 2 Torontonian musicians in a row. Thanks again for joining. Can't wait to see you.